Newcastle 4, Burnley 1, and Newcastle United absolutely tore apart Burnley. They could have scored 5 or 6. They had an iffy first 10 minutes, maybe getting used to the 4-4-2. Then, obviously, Livramento started off this great move. They go 1-0 up, and then they were just in control of that game. And I thought all round Newcastle put in a really good performance, but I don't think any player had particularly a bad game, to be honest. Any outfield player, I thought the fullbacks were great. I thought the centre-backs were great. The midfield was great. Jacob Murphy, Longstaff players I see get a lot of criticism, had a very good game. Gordon was brilliant as always. Lewis Hall really impressed me. Bruno G, as you know, his quality. Callum Wilson shows exactly what he can do. And of course, Isak just getting his goal, chasing down. But as a Man United fan, it's a little bit worrying at the moment because I want to finish 6th place because I want to be in Europa League next season, not the silly little Conference League. And I guess even if Newcastle do finish above us, technically if we beat Man City in the FA Cup final, we can still be in the Europa League next season. But I just don't think we're going to beat Man City in the FA Cup final, and we can't beat Burnley. And while people will say it's only Burnley, Newcastle obliterated Burnley. Man United couldn't beat Burnley at home last week. It was quite worrying as a Man United fan. And now we've got to go to Crystal Palace away, who've been playing really well. Then we've got Newcastle and Arsenal who aren't losing at the moment. And then we've got Brighton away, final game of the season. Newcastle have superior goal difference to us. Like, we've got to win every single game. We've got to beat Arsenal. We've got to beat Newcastle. We've got to beat Palace and Brighton away to finish 6th. I think, like, that's worrying. Obviously, Newcastle have loads of players out and loads of injuries, and they actually are 4 points behind Spurs with better goal difference, and Spurs have been Spursy, but Spurs do have Sheffield United and Burnley last 2 games of the season. But it is a little bit worrying. It's a little bit worrying how much Newcastle are catching us. And to be honest, like, I'll say this as a United fan, and I said this in my other video, like, if Newcastle finish above us, they deserve it. Like, Man United, we've found ways to win somehow when we've not played well and get it over the line because we've got Bruno Fernandes, who's just unbelievably good and just does something crazy, and we win. Whereas Newcastle, they've got plus 22 goal difference for a reason, because they've actually dominated a lot of games and played well. And obviously, one player I want to start off by talking about is, of course, Anthony Gordon. But I do want to talk about Lewis Hall. I do want to talk about Jacob Murphy. I do want to talk about a couple other performers. But for me, you've got to talk about Anthony Gordon because he broke some kind of record for Newcastle today. And I call him Mr. Consistent because I think every game I watch, he's very, very good for Newcastle. Even if he doesn't score or assist, he's always involved in the goal somehow. Seems that everything that happens in attack comes through Gordon. And I read a statistic on Twitter, so I don't know if it's true, but apparently Newcastle, who've played the same amount of games as Liverpool, have 2 more goals than Liverpool this season or something like that. You know, Liverpool with Nunez, Salah, all of that. Newcastle have more goals than Liverpool this season, and that speaks of how good Gordon's been. Obviously, Isak coming back in, Callum Wilson's quite clinical, Harvey Barnes is quite clinical. But Newcastle last season, who were often praised on their defence, and particularly the beginning of last season, have now also shown we can score goals. So if Newcastle, you know, sort out the defence, maybe get a proper DM and push Bruno higher up so he can create more, get another winger in as well for some real competition, I think Newcastle are in a very good position next season if they can sort out the defensive injuries. I think Hall and Livramento, long-term fullbacks for Newcastle, because of Shah Botman, the sells all the injuries, bring in 2 centre-backs, bring in a DM, push Bruno Guimaraes up if you can keep him, bring in a right wing, keep Isak. Newcastle in a very good place. And one player that is probably part of Newcastle's long-term future is Anthony Gordon, probably one of the players with the best sort of desire and attitude in the Premier League. 10 goals, 10 assists. If winning penalties counted as assists, I think he'd be on like 17 assists. I believe Gordon has won the most penalties in the league this season. Do correct me if I'm wrong on that, because he seems to always win penalties. Whenever I watch Gordon, when Newcastle play the Big Six, he's always good. I think he's got the most goal contributions against the Big Six this season as well. He's a big game player, always shows up, he's got that desire. And I think when Gordon's got a bit of space, when Gordon's 1v1 and he gets down the byline, he makes things happen. Today, Anthony Gordon got an assist, had 56 touches, but made 4 key passes today, created 4 chances today. He was very good. I think his final ball, I think his decision making, I think, is very, very good and underrated as well. Completed 2 out of 2 long balls, completed 1 out of 3 dribbles, and of course won the penalty. Anthony Gordon winning a penalty. When he dribbles, when he's tight in those box areas, he makes things happen. And I've actually got a statistic on Anthony Gordon to show you guys. And obviously he did a video on Anthony Gordon not that long ago. And he said Anthony Gordon's approach to 1v1s in and around the penalty area is some of the best I've seen in the league this season. Attacking 1v1s that led to goals in the next 10 seconds. And I say this now, there's a lot of times Newcastle has scored where Gordon hasn't got the goal or assist, but Gordon was part of that goal. Whether it's winning a penalty, whether it's, you know, doing a little pass in the box, dribble in the box, in and around the box. in that final third, Gordon is very decisive. His decision making is very good. And he's very difficult for defenders to read. He uses his body well to manipulate defenders so they can't read him. He uses his pace well to get down that byline. I think his decision making is good. I think his work rate's very good. Desire, everything you want from a winger off the ball, Anthony Gordon offers in terms of desire, work rate. And I think arguably he's been the best left wing in the Premier League this season because, who's been better at left wing? I'm trying to think. Son's played in the middle and been hit and miss. Rashford's not had a good season. Martinelli's not had a good season. Liverpool's been very inconsistent in attack. Who has anyone been better than Gordon left wing? I don't think anyone has. And I think, with Southgate watching today as well, Southgate will look a bit silly if he doesn't take Gordon to the Euros because he's the third Newcastle player in history to reach double figures for goals and assists. He's the second player in the Premier League this season after Ollie Watkins to reach double figures for goals and assists. And he's the first player since Rule Fox in 94-95 to reach double figures for goals and assists in a single campaign for Newcastle. And it wasn't just the assist, it wasn't just the penalty one. It was that many times he got the ball and he spun the Burnley player, and the only way Burnley could get the ball off him was fouling him. And I have to say, I thought the referee was pretty shocking today. He really did not like Newcastle. To be fair, there was a few fouls that he didn't give Burnley, but he really did not like Newcastle. The amount of times, kick. No, the ref doesn't see anything. But the only way he could get the ball off Anthony Gordon was fouling him. And I think what I like about Gordon, I've always, rated Anthony Gordon. I said that, he's a good player in there as well. And you can read all my old tweets about Gordon, but he's a winger that can go from outside to in. He's a good presser. His desire, he works hard. He always wants the ball. He's really good in those games against the big six. He does not go missing. He presses. He makes runs in behind. He's got the intelligence off the ball to find the right space, make runs in behind. He can carry the ball forward. He can eat up space, take advantage of the space in front of him. Good decision maker, good IQ. His ball striking's really improved. He gets goals. His delivery, his final ball's really improved. He's got assists as well. He's developing into a top player. He's going to get better and better. He wins penalties. But on top of all of that as well, it's the mentality, it's desire, it's the physicality to cover that amount of ground as well. But his ability 1v1 is such a threat. In and around the box, 1v1, he can manipulate defenders. And he does something that a lot of people won't pick out on. But he can also create space for players like Isak to run into. And then there's a pass there for Isak that he indirectly creates where then Isak can get the ball and shoot. And I think one thing he does well is when he drives down the byline, that obviously brings, splits the defence. The defence has to then widen out. He's stretching the width. Then he's going down the byline. Defender has to track him down. There's more space in the box. He can deliver across. Bish, bash, bosh. Isak and Wilson in the centre of the box, who are obviously top goal scorers. They are there. And when you've got a traditional winger in Gordon and you've got a good clinical goal scorer in Isak, it works. He's not, a top goal scorer, Anthony Gordon, but he's got a lot of goals. He makes a lot happen. He reminds me of more of a traditional winger, an old school winger, someone that I think Alex Ferguson would have really liked at United back in the day. He gives me that kind of vibe, and it really works at Newcastle 4-4-2, putting it in. And I think he just blitzes past his opponents. And I think for me, Anthony Gordon was man of the match yet again for Newcastle. But I've just realised I spent 5 minutes talking about Anthony Gordon. I don't like my videos to be longer than 10 minutes. So let's talk about Lewis Hall. I thought Lewis Hall was brilliant today. I thought Livramento was brilliant today. I thought they were involved in Lewis Hall was obviously involved in the Longstaff goal with a really good pass. Livramento was obviously involved in the first goal, carrying the ball up and all of that. The desire, the energy, the attitude shown from the players. And there's no doubt in my mind there's a really good player in Lewis Hall. He may, there'll be developments needed defensively. I think he's better offensively than defensively, but he's a very good player. He's so young. He's raw. Of course, there will be some inconsistencies. Of course, he'll make a mistake along the way and he'll have games where he's not at his best. But I think, whenever I see Lewis Hall play, I do question why Eddie Howe hasn't taken a chance on him more, looking at this from a rival's perspective. I think that he's been very good today for Newcastle. I think he's been very good when he's really been given a chance. And I think that he actually looked very dangerous. He's very direct. He's very good going forward. He looked very dangerous. And when he's got the ball, he's just composed, driving forward the ball. I think he was very good at bringing the ball forward, carrying the ball forward. I think he build up in terms of ball progression. Livramento and Lewis Hall, Newcastle looked technically better on the ball. I've always said, Manchester City on the ball, Arsenal on the ball, probably technically best sides. Off the ball, I've always said Newcastle arguably one of the best sides, if not the best side in the Premier League off the ball when everyone's fit, because of their work rate. Newcastle probably have the best athleticism and off the ball work in the league. What they do need to do is just get some more technical based players. And Lewis Hall and Livramento are very technically good players. They can carry the ball, they help him build up, and they obviously resulted in those first sort of 2 goals. Brilliant pass from Hall. Obviously, Livramento carrying it up. And I think with Lewis Hall, when he gets the ball, he drives forward, he's playing the ball down the channel. He likes to do those sort of diagonal pings. And, you know, I think while there could be improvements in this defensive game, 1v1, of course, he's young, he's raw. And I think, you know, the pass and build up for that goal was good. And Newcastle looked a lot better in build up, because I think with Fabian Schär missing for Newcastle, and Fabian Schär's very crucial in Newcastle's build up, he's very good on the ball. He likes to play it quick into Bruno Guimaraes. There was questions about, oh, what are Newcastle going to be like in build up with now Fabian Schär out injured? And I think the fullbacks did a really good job of actually helping Newcastle in possession and play the ball forward. And I thought that it was a really, really good goal from, of course, Longstaff. But, you know, he makes a good pass. Callum Wilson had a really good game today. Like, Callum Wilson and Murphy, we're not really going to talk about, but they did have really, really good games today. I just don't want to make this video too long. You know, Callum Wilson holds it up, uses his strength well. Longstaff gets a good goal, but that started from Lewis Hall. And he reminds me of a baby Luke Shaw in a way. I remember Luke Shaw at Southampton, a really great player, was really good in his first season at United, then suffered, unfortunately, the awful leg break, and he's had a few setbacks since. But he's someone I would like. Man United need a left back because Luke Shaw can't stay fit. And he's someone I'd like to see at United as an understudy to Luke Shaw. Lewis Hall gives me that Luke Shaw energy. And a lot of people don't rate Luke Shaw, and there's always memes that he's fat and all of that. But like, if you watch football, you know Luke Shaw's a very good player. Luke Shaw was class for England at the Euros. He's been injured all of this season. He was brilliant last season. He was injured the whole season before. He was brilliant that season ahead of the Euros. Like, he's been hit and miss for United, but he's been inconsistent, he's been injuries. But like, everyone knows there's a quality player in Luke Shaw. Everyone knows Southampton Luke Shaw was great. And Lewis Hall gives me that Luke Shaw energy. Like, he's going to be England's next left back if he stays on track. Can improve defensively, but on the ball, going forward, he's very good. I think he obviously got the ability to invert a midfield, which you haven't really seen so much, which is what Chelsea are doing with Cucurella, which makes me think, why didn't they keep Lewis Hall? Like, they got Lewis Hall and Maatsen, and they start with Cucurella and Chilwell, which is madness. But Lewis Hall's technical ability is very good. He's very good on the ball, very good technically, and he will definitely develop defensively, develop awareness, develop anticipation. But I think him and Tino Livramento, they're probably going to be Newcastle's fullbacks for the next 10 years if they live up to their potential. They'll obviously probably need to bring someone in, experience, depth, challenge them. Of course, you know, you can't quite rely on Lewis Hall to start every single game. Now for Newcastle, he's young, he's raw, but he's a very, very good player. For me, I think he could have a big future. And Livramento was also very good in build-up as well. And I think the hunger, youth, energy, technical ability that they bring in this modern Premier League era is going to be so beneficial for Newcastle. So I do think that while Newcastle had a depleted lineup, and I actually didn't know if Newcastle were going to win so comfortably today because of the amount of players they had missing, they played really well bar first 10 minutes, maybe getting used to formation. Eddie Howe's changed the formation. He's made adaptations with all these injuries and got a performance out of them. And I think Newcastle, most goals, third most goals in the league this season or something, got more goals than Liverpool this season, 22 goal difference. If they get sixth place, like, they deserve it. Let's be honest. They have, with the injuries they've had, I think that Newcastle have had quite an underrated season. And I think Eddie Howe has done quite a good job. And I think today, yes, it is Burnley. Burnley are rubbish, but I'm a Man United fan. I watched my team struggle to Burnley last week. You can only beat what's in front of you. And I thought the all-round performance from Newcastle was absolutely brilliant. Isak got his goal, of course. I mean, when Bruno Guimaraes is Bruno Guimaraes and Isak, you know, just two top class players. Murphy had a really good game. Longstaff had a really good game. Centre-backs did a solid job. I mean, look, Richie makes a bit here. Dubravka's a bit, but they're not in Newcastle's long-term plan. So I think if Dubravka's a bit makes a mistake or Richie makes a mistake, it doesn't really matter. And I thought, interestingly, Newcastle starting to have a bench as well. Joe Linton coming on, which is a good player. I think Joe Linton makes Newcastle a lot better. And with Tonali out for so long, they needed Joe Linton, they needed Willock, they needed Bruno Guimaraes this season, who have all, you know, got injured really, bar Bruno. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below, Newcastle fans. Let me know how you're feeling. Do you think you could beat Man United to sixth place? Because unless we beat you at home, which maybe if we score the first goal, maybe, because I think Newcastle do look better once they've got that first goal. The confidence goes in them. But I'm a bit worried that Newcastle are going to finish above us. I can't lie. I'm a bit worried you are. Let me know your thoughts. Bye.